So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Yeah, my name is Pravina and I am the Customer Relation Executive of TAU. So I'm leading referrals and new enrollment students. So today webinar is about the world needs doctors or public health professionals in the COVID situation. So let's start during this global pandemic situation, the public health emergency has made us understand the importance and demand for community health workers in society. Also, public health has become one of the fastest growing professionals nowadays in increased salary potential and enhanced career growth. This webinar will provide you insights on the need for public health professionals worldwide and the significance of getting a degree in this field. COVID-19 shows the world needs physicians who can look beyond medical charts. As modern medicine has advanced, so too has our understanding of what affects health. Over recent decades, this has generated a number of new fields in medicine. And one of the most important that has been born out of the latest generation in social medicine, it studies how social and economic factors help determine our health. Specifically, inequalities within societies that negatively influence health outcomes. So similar to primary health care, social medicine prioritizes health equality and promotes a broad view of health, multi-sectional action, and the participation of communities. Both significantly contribute to process in improving health equality. So COVID-19 has placed a spotlight on the field of social medicine. It has done so by showing up injustice in society. An example is the fact that African American and Native American communities in the US are experiencing COVID-19 deaths. The results is that more people are beginning to argue that social medicine should take center state in the medical community. So, but the argument towards positive progress approach to healthcare is also being met, by those who still cling to the traditional model of medicine. So the argument has come to head over approaches to medicine education. Thank you, Peter, for the confirmation. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome all. Welcome all. For those who just joining us, welcome. The main argument against a social medicine orientation in medical education is that comes at the expense of practical preparation in areas like pandemic response and disaster preparedness. In a recent article, a professor of medicine, Stanley Goldfarb, went too far as to argue that social medicine should be removed from the traditional American model. We are in of those believe social medicine is an integral part of the formation of healthcare professionals. So we strongly believe that our trainees and graduates need to be content experts and practitioners, but that they also need to understand that social determinants of health and diseases. So both are necessary for an integral understanding of any major health challenges, including pandemics. So our view is that it's not a queen of social medicine at the expense of emergency medicine. This is false. Increasingly, research has shown that a multi-sectorial approach is needed to deliver effective health care. Understand how factors such as poverty, food, insecurity has an impact on the population health. This is popularly true for the most important medicines. Consider this an example. It's not an uncommon in many developing countries to see a child admitted to a hospital with serious complications. They receive appropriate care, including food, recover significantly, and are discharged in a very good state. But they are then readmitted with the same conditions. The treatment the treatment of this child is not only the hospital based administration of the food and medicine, it goes far beyond to food security, safe water provision, environmental health, and other determinants of health and disease. So we have to see like both lessons are needed. Like doctors should be trained in emergency and also in critical care. They should also be trained in social medicine. Missing out on either renders responses inadequate. So one danger of one track approach to medical education is that it creates technically capable physicians who are dangerously unaware of numerous factors that determine health on the individual, community, and global health. So this makes them ill prepared for a reality of clinical experience. So the reality is that an application of both social justice and a biosocial lens which focuses on how social factors influence health are needed to understand how different groups are uniquely affected by an event such as like a current pandemic, how they access existing health services, and how this is in turn can affect a nation's pandemic preparedness and response. For example, if I want to say in the US, the coronavirus is disproportionately affecting African Americans. In US hotspot, more than 70% of COVID related deaths have been among Black Americans, despite making only 33% of the population, according to the Department of Health. So, health professions need to understand why. One reason could be the well documented mistrust of the US health sector, which has in the past compromised public health responses. So, this has been also documented in other parts of the world, such as during the outbreaks of tuberculosis, preventing the spread of HIV in Africa, and efforts to contain outbreaks. So, why social justice matters? The experience of COVID-19 has been a case study in why medical students need to exposure to more, not less, social justice issues. There is a reason why medical schools globally are adopting these principles of social medicine and why students encounter patients before they graduate. This comes back to a problem that has plagued the success of multiple health policies over time. How can you design and implement health systems or treat patients without understanding the historical, social, geographical, and political circumstances of those you are serving? So, an effective pandemic response can't be separated from the how or the why of its arrival. The factors contributing to its transmission or its devastating after the effects. Concentrating only on fundamental classroom training puts a metaphorical plaster on the wound and simply avoids the next graze on the knee. Understanding how and why these diseases come to fruition, avoids taking these learnings into the future and protects millions of lives. So, putting patients at risk. Health practitioners and health educators, medical education that is not patient centered and pinned around social medicine puts patients at risk. Of course, the world needs physicians who are better prepared to help battle deadly pandemic diseases like COVID 19. But students also need enough biosocial tools and social justice training to prevent, respond, and disagree the burden of pandemics in a way that's inclusive of everyone and consequently benefit entire society. Not doing this increases the risk for all, even those who have the privilege of accessing care. Only by training a new generation of physicians who can uh, look beyond medical charts and see the bigger picture can we be prepared for the next pandemic and any other health challenge we will face in the future. So next one we will be seeing like health professional networks. So health professionals play a center and critical role in improving access and quality healthcare for the population. They provide essential services that promote health, prevent diseases, and deliver healthcare services to an individuals, families, and communities based on primary healthcare approach. So mechanisms for optimizing the strength and skills of health professions will be essential to achieving Millennium Development Goals. So World Health Report working together for health highlight the worldwide shortage of almost 4.3 million doctors, midwives, nurses, and support workers. 36 of the 57 countries with severe shortages are in Africa. So, responding to this urgent crisis, the 59th World Health Assembly adopted resolution with recognize the centrality of human resources for health, for the effective operation of country health systems, and called for the use of innovative strategies to maximize health professional contributions through network and partnerships. So here, if you see about WHO, support member states maximize the contributions of health professionals through interprofessional education and collaborative practices, provide technical guidance and develop policy options and tools for enhancing health professional contribute to health system strengthening through the primary care approach, map the international and interhealth professional networks that have the capacity to support global health initiatives. Link health professional worldwide through virtual communities of practice so they can inform effective policies and promote successful practices. Support the maintenance and development of professional competences through continuing education to ensure health professionals are equipped to provide best care possible. So, attacks on healthcare in the context of COVID-19. Since the beginning of the outbreak, healthcare providers have been shown more support and gratitude that they ever have. Yet, attacks on healthcare have continuously been reported and now also include incidents linked to COVID-19 pandemic across the world. So, the public health emergency has demonstrated that health facilities, medical transport, patients as well as healthcare workers and their families can and do become targets everywhere. This alarming trend reinforces the need for improved measures to protect healthcare from acts of violence. During the COVID-19 pandemic, more than ever, protecting the health and lives of healthcare provides on the front line is critical to enabling a better global response. So you can just see the types of reported attacks related to COVID-19, physical assault, denial of services, obstruction, eviction from home, cyber attack, heavy weapon, individual weapon. So you can just see and the impact on the responses. The COVID pandemic has put some health system under immense pressure and stretched over their capacity. As such, responding to this public health emergency and successfully minimizing this impact requires every health resource to be leveraged. Failure to protect healthcare in this rapidly changing context exposes health system to critical gaps in services when they are not most needed. However, attacks on healthcare not only have a direct impact on the ability of health systems to deliver services to those most in need. As those continue to be targeted by acts of violence during this public health emergency, health systems must, among other things, prepare for shortages of healthcare workers unwilling or unable to report to work due to unsafe environments or obstruction in their personal lives. As shown in the infographic, I have already shown right, like defining attacks on healthcare. Here, if you see, it ensures the access to health service in the cornerstone of a successful health responses. So any verbal or physical act of violence, obstruction or threat that interferes with the availability, access, and delivery of such services is defined as attack on healthcare by the World Health Organization. As shown in the infographic, the nature of attacks on healthcare related to COVID varies greatly across contexts and can range from the use of heavy weapons targeting health facilities to the stigmatization of healthcare workers. So ultimately, whether they take a form of cyber attack or a physical assault, the people of urgently needed care endanger healthcare providers and undermine health systems. So how you will respond to attacks? So responding to attacks during the pandemic, the international community, governments and civil society have taken the first steps to protect health system by addressing attacks on health care as well as their roots. So WHO, governments and the international community team, we have participants, we have just opened the poll, so you can start polling. Yeah, just now we have enabled the polling, so you can just start polling. So public health governments and WHO governments and international community has also taken measures to address stigma around COVID-19. In condition to regular social media campaigns, the government of UK and WHO launched the collaborative campaigns like Stop the Spread to raise awareness about the dangers of misinformation across Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East and Latin America. WHO also made available a COVID-19 risk communication. So, the package of healthcare facilities as well as dedicated risk communication and community engagement guidance for countries and guide for governments, the media, and local organizations to prevent and address social stigma. WHO continues to collect information and data to improve our understanding of COVID-19 related attacks. Informations, its a network of partners and document good practices. So next we are coming about public health. Physicians are on the front line is the effort to address the major issues that impact the health of the nation. So from vaccinations to tobacco use to women's reproductive health and beyond. The AMA offers physicians tools and resources they need to face these challenges head on. We have 8 ways to protect doctors caring for patients with COVID-19. So the 8 ways, if you see, you can we have just listed out the 8 ways. You can just go through that. So even as public health authorities work with physicians and other health professions to treat patients with the coronavirus disease, that the World Health Organization this week officially officially dubbed COVID-19. A key part of preventing more information is to give physicians, other health professionals, and the hospitals and health systems they work in right recommendation information to protect themselves and others. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has updated their infection prevention and control guidance specific as COVID-19 to do just that, detailing 8 key steps that should be followed. While COVID-19 has not spread widely in the US, among the first cases identified here were in Amita Health, that is Alicia's Medical Center in Hoffman Estates. So MD chairs the Infectious Diseases Division there and recently spoke with the AMA to offer a first-hand account of how his organization cared for 2 patients with COVID-19 and protected their physicians and health professions. So continually, AMA encourages physicians to stay up to date on this evolving situation and has provided COVID-19 resources for doctors, other health professionals, and the public. As more information is made available about COVID-19, the AMA will update the public, physicians, and other health professionals. So the first one in this, protect doctors caring for patients will be like minimize chance for exposure. It is important to ensure facility policies and practices are in place to minimize exposure to respiratory pathogens, including 2019 and co. These measures should be implemented before patient arrival, upon arrival, and throughout the duration of the affected patient's time in the healthcare setting. So next one will be like adhere to precautions. Follow standard precautions. The CDC says to assure every person is potentially infected or colonized with a pathogen that could be transmitted in the healthcare setting. It is very important to pay attention to training on correct use, proper donning and doffing, and disposal of the personal protection equipment All health professionals who enter the room of a patient with known or suspected COVID-19 should adhere to standard contact and airborne precautions. So, including the use of eye protection. So, before I'm going to next, I just wanted to welcome. For those who are joining, just I wanted to welcome you. So the next will be like a manage visitor access and movement. Create procedures for monitoring, managing, and training visitors. For known or suspected patients with COVID-19, physicians and other health professionals should restrict visitors from entering the room. So I got a message from Mr. Daniel that please can we be moving with the slides is making us not follow the slides. Slide is not moving. So Daniel, can you view the current slide now? Okay. Can anyone? Thank you. Okay, Taiwo, thank you for that. So okay. I think the presentation, I mean, the page is clear. And so once again, I just wanted to remind all you polling, please, we have enabled the polling. You can just start. Okay. So the next one will be like implement engineering controls. Healthcare organizations should also consider designing and installing engineering control to reduce or eliminate exposures by shielding physicians, other health professionals and patients from infected individuals. For example, physical barriers or partitions can help guide patients through triage areas. So the next one will be monitor and manage health professional. For physicians and other health professionals who are ill or exposed to 2019, movement and monitoring decisions should be made with guidance from public health authorities. When providing care to patients with COVID-19, healthcare organizations and facilities should implement sick leave policies that are non-punitive, flexible, and consistent with public health guidance. The next one will be like train and educate health professional. Everyone should be provided with job or task specific education and training on preventing transmission of infectious agents prior to caring for a patient. So whenever respirators are required, all health professionals must be medically cleared, trained, and fit tested for respiratory protection device use. So the next one will be like implement environmental infection control. Use dedicated medical equipment for patient care. Clean and disinfect all non-dedicated, non-disposal medicine equipment according to the manufacturer's instruction and facility policies. So detailed information can be found in CDS. Finally, the last one will be like establish reporting to public health authorities. Implement mechanisms and policies that will help to promptly alert all appropriate members of the team, such as infection control or facility leadership. You should also continue to communicate and collaborate with public health authorities. Specific persons with the healthcare organization should be designed for communication with public health officials and discrimination of information to health professionals. Participants, we have enabled the polling. So please start polling. Hi, Saidu. Oh, great. You are a community health officer from Sierra Leone. That's wonderful. Please, participants, please. I mean, we have enabled the polling. I think the polling, you have not started polling. Please start your polling. And if you're already done, please ignore. We have enabled the polling. Please, yeah, start the polling. Yeah. So the next one will be like, so we have seen more about the public health and about the COVID-19 current situations, and how the doctors, nurses, and how we are getting the supports from them. And we have seen about the 8 ways to protect doctors caring for patients, and more about the social justice matters. And we have seen more about the physicians who can look beyond medical charts. So the next topic will be like, we will be seeing more about the Texila American University programs. So the here in Texila American Universities, we have a public health program where, if you see, it's not only the doctors should do a public health program. If you are a science background student, you can do a public health program. So if you see in the bachelor's program, we have a business administration and public health for 2 years. It is a 2 years program, and we have just offering the fees starting from 3,000 USD, which is a 50 percentage offer. We have just enabled due to this COVID. So the participants who are attending the webinar will be getting this fees offer, like 50 percentage offer. The exact fees is 6,150, and we are offering 50 percentage offer for business administration and public health. So this offer will be provided for only the students who are currently participating and who are forwarding my information to your friends or colleagues, will be getting this offer from Texila American University. So we have a master's programs. The fees is starting from 3,300, and the master degree programs will be 2 years. We have business administration, public health, social work, public administration, and executive MBA. And we also have a short-term courses for 3 months. The fee starts just from $150. We have business administration, public health, medicine, and soft skill. So here also we have public health, medicine. So once the student are not preferred for a long term, you can also go for a short term. This will be the offer will be given only for the students who are forwarding the contact informations to your friends, colleagues, or your relations. So we do have a doctorate programs, clinical psychology, we have management, again we have public health, clinical research, alternative medicine, library, political, we have public administration. These programs will be for 3 years, and the fees will be start 3 to 3.5 years, and the fees starts from 7,700 USD with the offer. So while you're forwarding to the friends, or if you wanted to know the eligibility criteria, you can just see here. Like for bachelor's program, we require a 3 years of diploma or a 2 years of diploma from plus 1+ years of experience in the relevant field. So the fees, as you already seen, the starts from 3,000 to 4,000. Yeah, I got a message from Mr. Sabila. I'm Sabila Nelson. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. However, my network was not stable. I hope you share with me the presentation. Sure. Post this meeting, I will definitely share with you. Taiwo, I got a message from Taiwo. In Nigeria, at the start of pandemic, the presidential task force in charge of managing the process created a lot of fears, anxiety with the despotic like communication. Many people were afraid. Yeah, many people are afraid to access health. What type of risk communication model would you recommend? Definitely, I will just respond all your questions post this webinar. John, yeah, I got a message from Dr. John, like, thanks for the presentation. Thank you, John. So coming back, the master degree, the eligibility criteria will be like bachelor degree. Fees starts from 3,300 to 5,150, and doctor programs, the eligibility criteria will be a master degree. Fees starts from 7,700. So, benefits of enrolling with Texila American Universities. So, Texila American University, we provide a modular-based curriculum which focuses on the core competency and skills, intense and continuous faculty and moderator support, and we provide study materials and learning resources based on Bloom's and dedicated student mentor support throughout the program. We also have a forum discussion with the faculties and moderator support. So here in Texla American University, um, we are located in Guyana, South America, and Zambia in Southern Africa for the medical students, for pharmacy, and for nursing. And yeah, we also have short-term programs and distance and blended learning programs for public health. As you already seen, we have list of programs for distance and blended, and that will be taken care for 2 years, 3 years, and you will be receiving a regular certificate for that. So we use a BRICS methodology. If you want to know about the BRICS, it's like a unique design teaching technology. So yeah, designed for the distance and online learning program where students will learn the subjects in blocks. Here the main advantage will be like, once the student enrolled, they will currently, if you are working, not a problem. If you see, you can study anywhere, anytime without compromising your works. It will be like a complete 24/7. You can work at the same time, you can study. So once you once you started your learning, it will be very flexible for you. So definitely we can assure like it won't uh, it won't be inconvenient for your work. So block-based learning is dedicated learning for one subject at a time, which focuses on more immense learning. So each block is for 2 months or 8 weeks. So the next one will be like, yes. So admission process. Here you can just, everyone can see how Texila American University journey is like. So your journey towards a rewarding career starts here. Like the admission procedures will be like, first you have to forward your educational documents to the enrollment advisor, and after that it will be forwarded to the admission committee and the respective school, so that they will be evaluating your documents. And once you're shortlisted, your application will be moved to next level, and you will be receiving an first level of admission document. That will be like a eligibility confirmation letter. So once you receive that, you will be eligible for the partial scholarship offers offered by our university. And the partial scholarship will be started from 1,000. And now the participants who are currently attended the meeting will be getting more scholarship, as I already told you. And you can also forward it to your friends, your colleagues, your relations who are really interested, so that they will be getting around 50% of offer from the programs they choose for masters and bachelors. So yeah, once again I just wanted to remind everyone, please, we have enabled the polling. You can just start polling. So the learning process, as I already told you about the learning process, it will be a bricks methodology. We have a teaching methodology, and that will be in a learning management system, that is LMS. And we have a dedicated student mentors, faculties, and co-guides. And we have a grievance support in case if you have any queries. We also have a grievance support, capstone projects, e-journal publications, and reflective analysis, that is RAL. And we have graduates. So if any student want to talk with our graduates, that also possible. We can share the contact details of that. So one thing is, like, once you entered with Texla American University, if you have any problem with your fee structure or anything, definitely Texla American University can help, because we can provide you a referral commission, and that can be adjusted towards your tuition fees. So you can just see the proud moment graduates. So this was taken place in Dubai. You can see the Texla American University memento, and you can see how the smiling faces of the graduates. So next, so as I already told you, like, so in case if you're financially or lack, or if you have any issues once you enrolled into your universities, if you have any financial lack, it is not at all a problem. If you refer your friends or colleagues to our university, you will be rewarded. Okay, like if you see, once you refer your friends or colleagues for masters or bachelor's program, you will be earning like 300 US dollars, and for PhD it will be around 500 US dollars. It will be straight away adjusted towards your tuition fees. So after this webinar is completed, if you have any friends or colleagues who are really interested and they are financially capable, you can just share me the informations to me. But please, you should not um, uh, 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 address in the website. Like, please make sure that you do not send any referrals on Texla American University website, because then you will not be given a partial scholarships. So how to refer a student? Mention candidate's email ID, WhatsApp number, interested program, and current qualification to SRE WhatsApp or email. And step 2 will be like, fill the referral link. The link has been given here. You can just take a snap of it. So in the top of the referral link, your information, and bottom candidate information to be filled. I'm just keeping this page for a minute so that you can just take a snap. Okay, step 3 will be like, confirm through email or WhatsApp that you have filled the link, so that we can just tag the student under you. So once they successfully enrolled, you will be receiving the referral commission. Okay, I'm just moving to next page. You can see a proud ambassador of Texas American University. If you see, he has just referred and funded his education. He has not paid a single amount to Texas American University. Only he has paid his initial fees, and after that he has not paid a single fees for his education. He has just referred his friends, whoever the known persons, like his colleagues, everyone has around. He has enrolled 50 plus students, and he has not at all paid his fees entire to the entire program. So he has told, like, Texla American University has been a blessing in my life. I joined TAU to do masters in public health in 2012. After that, I wanted to pursue PhD but had no means of finance. Then I heard about TAU's refer a friend scheme. And with that scheme, I started earning 300 to 500 per referral. With the referral bonus, I was able to finance my entire PhD fees. It's not that wonderful, proud student ambassador with TAU for 5 years now. So, yes, we have a Q&A section, so you can just post your question and answers so that I will be ready to respond you. You can also note my contact details. You can just take a snap of it, my WhatsApp number, Skype ID, email ID. So postage section, if you have any queries or you want to refer any students, you can just do that. Or if you want to enroll immediately with the partial scholarship offer, you can come to it. So question and answers, I have received a message from farmer like Dr. Farmer. Thanks for the presentation, Pravina. Hope you will share the presentation with us. This presentation is awesome. Thank you so much, doctor. Thank you.